Well, it's that time again for the Pigskin Prognosticator of Prodigious Proportions. If you listen to us, you'll wake up Sunday morning independently wealthy. All this brought to you by our friends at Casa de Campo in the Dominican Republic. Check it out, casadecampo.com. I'll be down in the DR as they cut the ribbon on Teeth of the Dog, that Pete Dye gem. I've played the other courses, never played Teeth. Excited about it. Again, go to Casa de Campo. All right, it's time to eat some turkey and then feast on some incredible football games. The rivalry games coming up this weekend. Many will decide if teams stay alive in the race for the college football playoffs as we start off Iowa at Nebraska. That's the game on Friday. Nebraska favored by 6 points at home, still playing a backup quarterback. Nebraska embarrassed by Penn State last week. And Iowa rolls into Lincoln, boasting the best defense in the Big Ten, one of the best in the country. Iowa's had a good season, and they lost the close one at USC. I think they handle the Huskers at home, and Nebraska will limp into the bowl season. They'll finally be back in a bowl, but I think they lose to Iowa, take Iowa, and get 6 points. How about the Egg Bowl, the much-anticipated Egg Bowl in Stark Vegas? Ole Miss favored by a touchdown, 7 points against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Will there be a distraction for this Ole Miss football team? I mean, every show, locally, regionally, nationally, talking about Lane Kiffin. Will he stay? Will he go? If you go to our podcast from yesterday, our radio show, I think he's going to stay. You know, his press conference, he didn't sound like he was leaning in that direction. But again, Lane Kiffin is a pretty sly fox when it comes to that. Again, this boils down to an Ole Miss football team. If not distracted, they're headed to the college football playoffs. They are so good on both sides of the football, and I think they have a chance to really make a serious run in the CFP. The Bulldogs have had an okay season, some moments they can be proud of, but I think in the end, the Revs will cover against the Bulldogs and finish headed to the CFP. What a season. And then we'll eagerly anticipate the announcement about the future of Lane Kiffin. How about the game Georgia against Georgia Tech? They've moved this game from Tech to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, anticipating a sellout crowd. Most of those will be Bulldogs fans. Big money game for Georgia Tech, obviously. And up until last week, I was so excited about this game. I thought potentially we had two 10-1 but Georgia Tech gets slammed by Pittsburgh last week, which exposed them in a lot of areas, and Georgia, Kirby Smart and his staff will take advantage. And if you've watched any Georgia games lately, Gunnar Stockton, the Bulldogs quarterback, over the last month of the season, I can't find a play where he's missed a pass. The kid is playing at a very high level in this Mike Bobo offense, and Bobo being an old quarterback himself, when he has a quarterback who's picking up things this quickly and is playing his best football at the end of the season, they keep adding things that other teams haven't seen yet. Georgia wins comfortably by more than 2 touchdowns against Georgia Tech. Won't be like last year with all the overtimes. The Bulldogs are a much better team. In fact, I think they're the best team in the country right now. How about Texas A&M at Texas? Again, another Friday game. The Aggies looking to finish the season 12-0. They're a 2.5-point favorite against Texas, who has an opportunity to finish the season at 9-3. It is fascinating to me. The Aggies have had this incredible season, and yet their conference schedule, they didn't have to play Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, or Tennessee. I mean, what a quirk in the schedule that was. They've certainly taken advantage. They are a very, very good football team, Texas A&M, and deserve the high ranking. But I really believe the Longhorns at home, and Arch Manning, again, he's getting better as the season goes, has played well in the big games. I think the Longhorns win a shootout at home. I like the Longhorns getting 2.5. In fact, I think they hand the Aggies their first loss of the season. How about the battle in West Lafayette, Indiana? Purdue and Indiana, the Hoosiers favored by 28.5. The battle for the Old Oaken Bucket, old traditional rivalry. But this will not be a game in any way, shape, or form. Indiana can literally score as many points as they want. It's been a hapless season for Purdue, and Indiana looks to finish 12-0 on the season ahead to the Big Ten championship game. Who they play there? Hasn't been decided yet. Could be Ohio State. They're in Ann Arbor on Saturday. Fox has the big noon kickoff, the big show. Looking forward to watching this. Michigan in Ann Arbor. It's going to be cold. It's going to be snowy. It's going to be what we expect for this game between these two arch rivals. Michigan looks for 5 wins in a row. The 4 previous victories, they were underdogs in all those as well. This time they're a 10-point underdog. Last year they were 20.5-point underdog, and they won in Columbus. Here's the deal with it. Cold and windy and blustery. Michigan loves to run the football. They're 10th in the country. They average just over 224 yards a game. They're just going to pound Ohio State. Again, Ohio State undefeated, but this will be their biggest challenge, certainly for their freshman quarterback, Julian Sayin, who remarkably is completing like 80% of his passes, but he's never played in a game of this magnitude. There will be pressure, not only from the Michigan defense, but just the fact that he's trying to win this game for Ohio State to complete an undefeated season, to break the losing streak to the rivals. I think Michigan gets it done again. And you know what's interesting about this series? Urban Meyer never lost to Michigan. In fact, he was 7-0, and then Ryan Day won the first game that he took over. So they had a run of 8 straight wins, and then since then, Michigan has won 4 straight. What a crazy series this is. I think Michigan makes it 5 in a row and hands Ohio State their first loss of the season. So I'm taking Michigan in the 10. ACC battle. Miami a 7-point favorite at Pittsburgh. Hurricanes have to win, a must-win situation if they have any hope of sneaking in the CFP. Last road game was at SMU, and Miami did not play well in that game. Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago looked terrible against Notre Dame, and that game was at home. And then last week, Pittsburgh bounces back in a big way against Georgia Tech. They led that game 28-0 and won comfortably over Georgia Tech. I think it's trouble for Miami on the road. Whatever happened against Notre Dame was just one of those anomalies for the Panthers. I like Pitt getting 7 at home against Miami. How about Clemson at South Carolina? Talk about two teams. This rivalry, it's been a tough season for both. And for Clemson and Dabo in his 18th season, full-time coach. That first year he took over for Tommy Bowden midway through. But he's been the head coach for 18 years at Clemson. Pretty amazing. Never had a season like this. If they win, they go to a bowl game, which, again, with all the disappointments this season, that would be a nice way to finish for Clemson. For South Carolina, no bowl game, but a chance to beat Clemson and to finish things off and get excited about next season. Shane Beamer is always Mr. Positivity. I just think South Carolina at home, again, we've seen flashes of really good play by South Carolina, and I think we'll see more of that against Clemson on Saturday. I like South Carolina covering the 2.5. How about Oregon at Washington? The Ducks win last week in what was an elimination game against USC. Another elimination game taking on Washington. They need to keep winning to make it into the CFP. They're 6.5-point favorites. Washington's only loss at home this season was to Ohio State. Good football team. The Huskies at home, they played at a different level. I think Oregon, the fact that they played a physical game last week against USC and they played a lot of big games here lately, I think that takes its toll. I like Washington getting 6.5 against the Ducks on Saturday. And I think Washington probably hands the Ducks their second loss of the season. At Rocky Top, Tennessee, a 2.5-point favorite over Vanderbilt. You know, for Tennessee, if you look at their season, a chance to finish 9-3, but they really haven't had that signature win. If they beat Vanderbilt, that will be a signature win. 9-3, beating Vandy. Go to a really nice bowl game that's tied in with the Southeastern Conference. So a lot to play for Tennessee. Obviously, major ramifications for Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia. If Vanderbilt pulls this off on the road and they go 10-2, I think they get into the CFP. And I think Diego Pavia, depending on what happens in the game, I think he elevates his status. Right now, he is probably 5th on the Heisman list, but you win in Knoxville to go 10-2, and Pavia elevates himself to, I think, probably the top 1 or 2 players in the country for the Heisman. Man, big game for both. I think Tennessee at home puts the hammer down and beats Vanderbilt on Saturday. And man, they'll be blaring Rocky Top all night long. How about Florida FSU? Talk about a hapless game in Gainesville. I hope a good crowd shows up at the Swamp. It has been a very frustrating / disappointing season for the Gators. And last week against Tennessee, it was obvious as the Gators rolled out there and fell behind 28-0 to the Vols. They had quite a few players on the sidelines. It has been a tough season injury-wise for the Gators, one tough game after another. They're not going to get a lot of those guys back. For FSU, a win means they go bowling. Mike Norvell got the vote of confidence. They don't want to pay off another contract, so he's back for another year. Would the FSU fans be happy going to some minor bowl, maybe like the Birmingham Bowl? Well, it's better than sitting home, I guess. But I think in this instance, I think you have two teams that have a lot of flaws, and I think the Gators, DJ Lagway and company, get it done, favored by 1.5. They win a squeaker against FSU and cover on Saturday. And how about Oklahoma at home against LSU, looking to complete a 10-2 season, head to the college football playoffs, favored by 10. If you watch the LSU Western Kentucky game last Saturday in Baton Rouge, senior night at LSU, the offense was absolutely listless. I mean, there was no energy. It wasn't an exciting offense. The speed on the outside, they have injured wide receivers. It plays right into that Oklahoma defense, and I think Oklahoma, again, they're grabbing some momentum here at the end of the year, and I think Oklahoma, this is one of the easier games this week. I think Oklahoma covers and wins handily against LSU on Saturday. And finally, the game I'm going to, the Iron Bowl in Auburn. Alabama favored by 6. I have a home in Alabama, and so I'm going to that game, spending Thanksgiving in Sweet Home, Alabama, then going to the game on Saturday. I've been to games for years, covering it in Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, and Auburn. I think it's the best rivalry in college football. Two teams within the state confines, no pro teams. This is blood on the moon. It's going to be fantastic. Under normal circumstances, I think Auburn gets a touchdown playing at Jordan-Hare. Usually it's this raucous, crazed atmosphere that definitely affects the opposing team. But in this regard, this Auburn team, again, full of holes, a lot of penalties. We're not sure who's going to play quarterback. Some people are excited about the freshman who played last week against Mercer. It really doesn't matter. It's an Auburn football team that has lost some close ones, and they've lost. I really believe in this game, they say the incentive is there regardless of the records, but I just believe Alabama has more to play for, and not only will the Alabama offense come to life with an outstanding receiving core, they've been down for about 3 weeks now. I haven't quite been clicking, but I think that they'll get it back at Jordan-Hare. And the one thing we don't talk about enough, Cade Womack, the defense coordinator for Alabama, who's up for all sorts of 3 or 4 head coaching jobs, but his defense is outstanding. They're fast, they rush to the football, they're a great tackling defense. They're on the plus side, +6 in turnover margin, and I think they create those turnovers against Auburn, and I think they keep their playoff hopes alive and go to Atlanta for the SEC championship. Alabama covers that 6 and wins the Iron Bowl. Man, I can't wait. I'm not going to eat so much this week, though. I think I'm going to temper my appetite on Thursday and get ready for what should be an incredible Friday and Saturday in college football. It's the Pigskin Prognosticator of prodigious proportions. Say that 3 times fast. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody.